Hi everybody, welcome back. So just to recap where we are working through the Chapter 2 PowerPoint while I need to be out of class to attend a meeting. And so we are going through the PowerPoint just as we would in class so that we can stay on schedule. You should have already watched this Chapter 2 video 1 and then this video, Heredity Foundation video. And then there was the continuation of the class lecture, which is Chapter 2 video 2. And then I asked you to watch this mitosis and meiosis. And now we're going to continue on, and you'll see in a minute the next time that there'll be a Chapter 2 video 3 right here, and that's what we're currently on and what we're making. So we are now on this slide talking about identical and fraternal twins. So on this slide, we're going to talk about monozygotic twins, and sometimes that is MZ for monozygotic. These are identical because they are derived from a single zygote. Remember I told you earlier about zygote, that's a fertilized egg that has split in two. So mono means one, so that'll help you remember one egg, one zygote, and then it splits in two, and so it's all the same DNA, all the same everything, chromosomes, so therefore those are going to be identical. Dizygotic twins are also known as fraternal twins and DZ, and again that's two, so they have two zygotes. So those are just two totally separate fertilized eggs, so two eggs got fertilized. That means that the chromosomes do not have to be identical in both of them because they are separate. So they share 50% of the genetic material. So they're going to have similarities, but again, they're going to be more like brothers and sister, or brother or sister, whichever. The other thing to consider is gender, because a lot of times people get confused by this. So identical twins can only be twins that are the same gender because again it was that single zygote split in two. So if you see a boy and a girl twin, you never need to ask if they're identical because the answer is always going to be no, they can't be identical. They have to be fraternal twins. They have to be the same gender in order to be identical, and they should look an awful lot alike if they're identical as well. So some things that you are going to see again from this material that I just mentioned is this word dizygotic, and you need to know that that is 2/3 of all twins are dizygotic twins. So only 1/3 of all twins is monozygotic. So again, you will need to know that dizygotic twins make up 2/3 of all twin pairs. So they're not identical, they're fraternal. The probability of having twins increases with maternal age due to less regular ovulation, and also the use of fertility drugs increases the probabilities of multiples in general, not just twins, but multiples. Okay. The next thing we want to look at is dominant and recessive traits. Traits are determined by pairs of genes. And remember, the genes are inside the chromosomes, and there's DNA inside the genes. Each member of a pair is an allele. So they talk about homozygous, where both alleles for a trait are the same. And they talk about heterozygous, where the alleles for a trait are different. And definitions for all of these words are found on page 50. But you do need to know that traits are determined by pairs of genes, and each member of the pair is called an allele. You will see that again, so you might want to catch that part of this slide. So you may have heard some of this talk before in biology in high school about dominant and recessive genes, and that's what we're basically talking about. Is, for example, how do you come up with blue eyes versus brown eyes versus green eyes versus hazel eyes and things like that. So we're going to continue looking at this a little bit more. There was a person called Gregor Mendel, and he established the laws of heredity. He actually did his research and became more knowledgeable using pea plants, PEA, pea plants. And he was finding the traits and crossing them to see what the outcomes would be. Averages are the effects of both alleles are shown, and the incomplete dominance of codominance. Now, the law of dominance is that the dominant allele paired with a recessive allele, then the dominant allele appears in the offspring. So, eye color is a really good one, and I'll show you that in this next example. So here you see two brown-eyed parents, but the capital B is the dominant and the lower B is the recessive. And so in this case, the capital B is for brown eyes and the lower B is for blue eyes, but the capital is dominant. So you'll see that the mother here had the dominant brown eyes, but she carried a recessive gene for blue eyes. And the father also, you can see in the picture, has brown eyes. He has the dominant brown but carries a recessive for blue. So these are the 4 children that they have. You'll notice that she gave 2 children the brown gene. She gave 2 children the blue gene. The dad gave 2 children the brown gene and 2 children the blue gene. So the first child got a brown from the mom and a brown from the dad. So it's a brown-eyed child, excuse me. The second child got a brown from the mother and a blue from the dad. But remember, the capital B was dominant, so therefore that's brown-eyed child. The third child got a blue from mom and a brown from dad. But again, when you had the lower B and the upper B, the capital B, the brown, is dominant here, so they got the brown. And then the final child got blue from both mom and dad, so the 2 lowercase b's led to a blue-eyed child. So hopefully that makes sense. I think it helps some when you can kind of see it actually working out. This picture is on page 51 in your book, and there's a chart on page 52 that you might want to look at as well. And a lot of times when you are in high school biology, they'll do a class experiment where you generate future children. Like they'll just give you random things like this picture, and then they'll say, what would this child be, or what, So you've probably seen something like this before. Okay, dominant and recessive traits. The combinations of dominant and recessive genes, and we could be carriers. So I'm going to back up to this picture, because you'll see in this case both the mother and the father were carriers of the gene for blue eyes, even though neither of them had them. And that's what they're talking about here. They talk about chromosomal or genetic abnormalities. These occur in autosomes or sex chromosomes, and it may be caused by a single gene or combinations, and it could cause multifactorial problems. And we're going to look at more about chromosome and genetic abnormalities in the next section. So we are going to keep right on going into section 2.2, and we're on the bottom of page 52 if you are a book person. And in looking at the abnormalities, the first thing we look at is Down syndrome. This has caused an extra chromosome on the 21st pair, and that basically results in 47 chromosomes. And so instead of the 46 that we would typically get from the 23 pairs, so instead of having 23 pairs, and again they're pairs, so that would be 46, this extra chromosome makes for 47. The probability of having a Down syndrome child increases with the increased age of the parent. By the way, new research, it used to think that it was just the age of the mother, but new research shows that the age of the father also plays a role. And then the characteristics of these children who have Down syndrome is there is a distinctive facial feature, which you'll see in the next slide. There's a picture. And there can be deficits in cognition, language, and motor development. And there's also adjustment problems. Unfortunately, there's a picture there of a Down syndrome child, and the facial features there, a flatter nose and the eyes in particular are very telltale. You'll see a lot of similarities there between children with Down syndrome. Unfortunately, also, these children have a shortened lifespan. Sex-linked chromosomal abnormalities are caused by an abnormal number of sex chromosomes, which is that 23rd set that we talked about earlier, where mom always contributes an X and dad contributes either an X or a Y. Most are infertile. Male with an extra sex chromosome, so it could be an XYY where there's an extra Y chromosome, and children born with this, they're going to be male because it's an X and a Y, and they'll usually be taller and they'll have very thick beards. It could be an XXY, which is Klinefelter syndrome. This happens in 1 to 5 to 900 men. So that you're going to see again. An XXY is Klinefelter syndrome, and it occurs in 1 to 500 to 900 men. Also, these men have less testosterone because, again, there's two X's there. And something that you will need to see, that you will see again, still related to Klinefelter, is that this is treated with testosterone, but these men are still sterile. So again, you'll need that XXY Klinefelter syndrome. It occurs in 1 to 500 to 900 men. And then you'll need to know that it is treated with testosterone, but these men are typically still sterile. So the next thing can be a female with abnormal numbers of sex chromosomes. So if there's only the one X, that's called Turner syndrome. And they have poorly developed ovaries and little estrogen. And you will see that again. So just one X is Turner syndrome. And these women have poorly developed ovaries, little estrogen. They are also infertile. Oftentimes they're shorter. They have cognitive deficiencies such as math and visual spatial skills that are deficient. So again, Turner syndrome, the two things in particular you want to remember is that these women will be infertile, and they also have math and visual spatial skills deficiencies. And the last one that we would talk about that is also found in women is 3 X's. It's triple X syndrome. They have lower language skills and poor short-term memory if they have this. Now continuing on, we're going to try to get through this slide as well. There are some more genetic abnormalities, and you need to know genetic abnormalities are all diseases, disorders caused by a single pair of genes. So you're going to see that again. Genetic abnormalities are all diseases / disorders caused by a single pair of genes. And if you're a book person, this is all found about page 56 in your text. So the first one, PKU, I can never pronounce the full word correctly, so I won't subject you to that. You do need to know that this is an enzyme disorder. You'll see that again. So PKU is an enzyme disorder, and it is detectable, and it usually creates, it has an impact on the nervous system and digestive issues. Another thing about PKU that you will see again and need to know is that it is treatable with diet as soon as possible. So a controlled diet is one way to treat it. So we've had 3 things to remember on this slide already.